And hello, Eric Resnick.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to Between Takes. I'm Laraine Stuart. I'm the interviewer, host, and producer of Channel 36 WeHo. And it's great to have you on the show today, Eric. It's such a pleasure. And Eric is Profile Helper.
Yeah.
Now, I want to start off and ask you, how did you get into this adventuresome journey? I mean, it's so amazing. But another thing I want to say is, we're going to discuss ghostwriting, on-site dating. This is the main thing that I want to stress. Okay, Eric, go ahead.
So my background is in corporate public relations and marketing. And back in 2004, I had left working in the public sector. I was working for a government public company. I was basically was in charge of teaching Americans how to not refrigerate tomatoes. And I answered this blind ad about helping people write dating profiles. It turned out the ad was for Match.com. And they were trying to test out a new dating profile help service that was run through a 900 number. And suffice it to say that the system failed. It was just an awful service, but it was a lot of fun. I helped a lot of people. And so when they ended their service, I said, you know what, I can do this. And so I started Profile Helper. And that's been my career for the last 19 years.
Okay.
My entire career helping people write their dating profiles.
Now, when you interview like other ghostwriters and everything, what are the prime requisites that would be?
So, it's interesting because I have a lot of people who tell me that they write they come to me and say, oh, I wrote my friend's profiles, or they tell me that they were lit majors or that they were poets. And none of that matters. What really matters to me is, one, can you write? And I want to know if you can write by having you write some dating profiles for me, giving you some sample test profiles to see how you do with them. But the big rule that every person has to pass before they come to work for me is they have to have been an online dater. There are a lot of people out there who think they know how to write a dating profile, but they've never done online dating. Mm-hmm. And so they really don't know what it's like to be inside of it. And so it ends up just feeling fake and feeling forced. The other challenge that I've had with a lot of writers who've come to me over the years is there's a lot of writers out there who will try to fix the client. They will try to create a profile for them that they think will get them the person that the writer thinks they need or deserve. But that's not our job. Our job is to the client and then to help them get out of their own way so that they can introduce themselves in the best way possible. So.
And like anything else, matching, dating, it's a game. It's a game of patience, right?
Patience. Yeah. What I tell my clients, the two big superpowers they need to succeed in online dating are patience and, oddly enough, the ability to say no to themselves. Because when you treat it, when you get impatient and you start treating online dating like a numbers game, you start saying yes to a lot of options that aren't real options. But they're not viable relationship options. They're just available things to you to fill the time. But when you take those things that aren't right for you just because you can, you end up burning yourself out before you get the people that you actually want to be with. I would much rather a client of mine go on one good date every 2 months than 15 bad dates every month.
Okay. Do you think with your line of work, do you think most of the people just do it for kicks, for fun, and get pleasure out of that? And they're not that sincere?
As far as my clients or as far as the people doing the work?
As far as the clients.
Oh, no. I'm a paid service.
Right.
So when people come to me, they're paying me anywhere from $79 to $400 And generally they don't do that when they're just, messing around. They do it because they're looking for something more serious, and they need help presenting themselves because they're having trouble getting out of their own way.
Okay. Do you get more female than male?
It honestly, it runs month to month. On the average, I would say that I'm probably around 50-50. I get there's a lot of men, there's a lot of women. I get majority of my clients are going to be over 45, but there's an increasing number of people in their early 20s to early 30s who are starting to be in a position where they're serious enough about a relationship that they're willing to pay to get assistance. 20 to 25-year-olds really looking for help with just Tinder and Bumble. 45 plus, they're mainly looking for help with sites like Match and eHarmony and things like that.
When the profile is written, they're describing themselves. Would they usually glorify the way they look, or glorify their age, or not tell their right age, or not tell age at all? Okay,
so there's a lot of stuff to unpack in what you just asked. So first, there's no reason for a client to ever mention their looks in their profile because they have photos. And as long as their photos are accurate, then their photos will speak for themselves. And if their photos are not accurate, that's going to give them a whole other set of problems that I'm not able to help them with. Because the last thing that you want is to have someone like your photos and then meet you and find out that your photos were inaccurate. When it comes to age, I find that there are some people who think they need to shave a couple of years to get past the firewalls that other people put up. But when you do that, it's always going to eventually come out, and it's just going to make you look insecure, unfortunately. Now, it's true that if you're an age that's a couple years older than what you think the person you're looking for is searching for, they might not find your profile. But if you're using the dating site appropriately, you're going to find their profile, and you have an equal opportunity to put yourself in front of them as they would have to find you on their own. So there are different dating sites. If you're using Tinder and Bumble, you don't necessarily have to list your age. On Match and on the more traditional dating apps, it's a mandatory aspect of what you have to do. I would always list your age because age is a factor that people take into account.
They do.
And when
especially here in California. I don't know how it's in Florida.
Oh no, it's everywhere. But when it looks like you're purposefully hiding your age by not showing it, you're just giving people an opportunity to imagine the worst case scenario for themselves. It's kind of like when a person only posts headshot photos and no full body shots. The person looking at the profile assumes there's a reason why there's no full body shots. Then you wonder. And if someone's not willing to date you because of your age, it's better to know that up front than to try to see if you could convince them to like you and then sort of back into the truth and then say, oh, by the way, I'm this age. Because then you have to overcome the fact that they're going to feel like you lied to them.
Yeah. And that's not good. I know.
Nope.
How do you feel? Do you ever have women, older, seniors, I'll say, instead of older, I'll say seniors, in their late 70s or 80s that want help in creating a profile?
Absolutely.
How would you write something like that and get a profile in that would be appropriate? So you write it the same way you write anyone else's profile. And that's by talking to the person and not treating the profile like an ad. Your profile's job isn't to convince someone to like you. It's not to show them why you're awesome or why you deserve to be loved by them. Your profile is a window. It's a window into who you are through the things that are important to you, or the things that you love, the things that make you happy. And if people don't like what they're seeing when they look through that window, they shouldn't climb through. But if they do, then they might be, but if they do like what they're seeing, then they're a good match for you. So you write it the same way. I would write
the content of a profile for a 30-year-old is going to be different than the profile for an 80-year-old. But but the concept of how you approach the person, it's the same. You approach the person by their individual goals, by the things that matter to them. I mean, I was talking to one of my favorite stories that I use in teaching my clients how to approach first dates, and how activity-based first dates are better first dates than just meeting for coffee, lunch, dinner, or drinks. And I had an 87-year-old woman in Brooklyn, New York, who told me that her favorite first date was to take guys axe throwing.
What?
And I will not say what her reason is, because I don't want to get you on trouble, because there was some language in why she described, but she said it helps her weed out some of the weaker guys.
Interesting. Very.
She wants a guy who can still throw an axe in his 80s.
Oh my heavens. Oh, that's too much. Your clients, when they get in touch with you, do you find them to have some anxiety? Is it hard for them to explain what they want to get down there?
Sometimes, it depends on what they're coming from relationship-wise, and how fresh they are out of a previous relationship. There are some clients who come to me and they're gung-ho and they're ready to do everything they need to do. There are some clients who come to me who have been struggling so long with online dating that there's an anger built into the conversation, and an aggression and a frustration that we have to overcome to get anything real out of the conversation. Uh-huh. There are people sometimes who come to me too soon out of a divorce or out of losing a spouse. And so when I have a client and the first thing they tell me is that they lost a spouse or they're just coming out of divorce, I ask them how long it's been. And then, everyone grieves at different rates. Mm-hmm. But what I try to ask all of those clients is, can you think about what you're looking for without being completely consumed by trying to recreate or avoid what you just had?
Uh-huh.
And if they, and sometimes they'll say, I'm not sure. And I say, well, I've been here for 19 years. Think about it for a couple days and give me a call back, because I'd love to help you, but I don't want to help you if you're not ready to be helped yet.
Right. Okay. Of all the sites, I think the best one you said was Match.
Well, it depends on your age and your dating goal.
Okay.
So,
well, excuse me. They usually say with Bumble and the other sites, they're like one-night stands. They're noted for that. Hookups right away.
Well, it depends. So Tinder is, there are people who go to Tinder to meet serious relationships, but with both Tinder and Bumble, the swiping mechanic and the mutual swipe mechanic on both of those apps sort of does lead to a more superficial connection.
Right.
And they did some studies throughout the pandemic that were showing that there were more, specifically women, on those apps who were using Tinder and Bumble for entertainment and for validation than for actual dating, which has led to a pretty unpleasant dynamic across the entire app. But then you've got apps like Hinge and Coffee Meets Bagel, which are sort of hybrid apps. Hinge is a swipe app, but it's not mutually reliant. And where on Tinder or Bumble, you'll have a lot of people who will not write a single word in their profile and just rely on photos. Hinge relies on every person to answer 3 questions and post 6 photos. So it's really well built for starting conversations. It's just not super effective database-wise for people over 50 yet, but it's growing. Coffee Meets Bagel is another app that is more dynamic as far as the type of profile, but not quite in that same realm as the traditional dating apps like a Match or eHarmony or Plenty of Fish or things like that.
eHarmony is like a story you're writing. Oh, it goes on and on and on. It becomes exhausting.
I find, without getting too deep into it, I've always described eHarmony as the dating site for people who want to settle down and are willing to settle to make it happen. You know, they use a large personality test that's supposed to determine your real personality, but from a marketing standpoint, it really seems like it's primarily designed to see if you finish the personality test. Because, and anyone who's done any study in marketing will tell you, when you spend 15 to 20 minutes doing an intake test before you join a website, you feel like you have ownership in the process, and you're going to be exponentially more likely to trust them at that point.
Sure.
But,
or it's a good position, a good job that you do.
Oh, yeah. Plus, if you compare the traffic, and there are sites you can go to like SimilarWeb where you can look at the actual traffic numbers on different dating sites. They get something like 1/6 the visitation of a site like Match. So, you know, while they can tell you that only showing you a certain amount of the matches that are out there and not the full database is designed to help you cut quickly to the important people, from an outsider, it feels like it's a great way to hide how small your dating site is.
I want to ask you, did you meet your wife on a dating site?
I absolutely did. It doesn't exist anymore.
Tell me something about
So, I'll tell you. So I met her on a little dating site. So part of what I do is I look at dating sites for a living. You know, because I want to see what's out there, and there's so many weird and interesting and unique sites. There's dating sites out there for every religion. There's dating sites out there. There's a site, I think I told you before, you know, everyone knows about Farmers Only, but there's a dating site called Mouse Mingle that's just for Disney fans. I mean, there are dating sites for everything. And so I'm a bit of a geek myself, and I was checking out a geek dating site, and just in checking it out, I happened to notice my wife on that site. Well, she wasn't my wife at the time; she was a total stranger. But I noticed this woman, and I sent her a message, and we've been together. We've been together for 10 years. We're coming up on our 5th wedding anniversary next month.
How exciting! How exciting! Yeah. Oh my God, that's too much for words. A ghostwriter. What definition would you give for the meaning of a ghostwriter if you were explaining to somebody?
Well, you know, so there's traditional ghostwriting. There's the people who you hire to sort of dictate your thoughts to and to write a book for you, things like that. And there's a lot of those people out there in the industry. Profile ghostwriting ends up sort of, it's one part coaching, it's one part therapy at times, because sometimes you have to help people break through their own walls so that you can get the information you need out of them.
Excuse me, I guess some people won't even let you go once they start talking to you and everything. They go on and on and on and on.
I've had, I think my longest consultation with the client ended up being 3.5 hours, and So sometimes people just have a lot to say, and sometimes people need a little extra help, and that's fine. But it's the biggest thing to be a profile ghostwriter is listening and not inserting yourself. There's a big problem with writing in general and ghostwriting, regardless of what you're ghostwriting for, is where the ghostwriter will insert themselves into the final product. If I insert myself, or if my staff inserts themselves into a profile, then the profile you're reading is not of the person who ordered it. It has to be that person and that person alone. It has to be their voice. It has to be, you know, I can't add humor to someone's profile by adding one of my jokes, because it's not one of their jokes.
Not one of theirs, yeah.
You know, I can't come up with a story that's more interesting than their story because I think that my story will suit them better. They can't follow, if they're asked about that, they can't follow up on my story. So it's really about listening and
I think some psychology too.
Yeah.
Going into this, really.
As I was saying, it is your I've had many clients ask me if I have a background in therapy. And I don't. It's public relations and growing up in a house with my mother and two older sisters. so probably why I'm in therapy, but I'm not a therapist myself. So
what are some of the craziest things that have occurred in your business through all of these years?
Well, I think one of the very first people who ever came to me, I never forgot his original profile that he had because I thought it was a joke. It was, my fiance died a year and a half ago. I'm not quite ready to move on, but I think she'd want me to. I'm looking for someone who's almost exactly like her, but not a fall down drunk. That was his actual profile that he had posted on Match.com. I've had people complain to me about exes being secretly parts of other religions for 20 years of a marriage. I've had clients who were famous. I can't say who, but I've had clients who, I've had writers for the New York Times as clients. I've had best-selling authors as clients because writing, and they're so embarrassed when they call.
Yeah, because some of these are like secrets that they're telling you in a way.
Well, that, and if you're writing for the New York Times, in your head, you should be able to write your dating profile.
True.
But I tell them all the same thing. I said, there's a reason why authors don't write their own book jackets. The marketing team writes that for them.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
You're too close to you, and so you usually are going to get in your own way when you try to write your own profile. And that, but it's every time I get someone who's a professional writer or a novelist or a screenwriter or a producer, it's fun for me, but it's a little embarrassing for them. But I don't give their names out or anything like that, and I never would.
I want to ask you something. Suppose somebody asks you, they're interested in doing a threesome, and they want to know how to write that up. How would that be?
I thank you for the context. I'm not interested, but thank you. But now I know that you're talking about profiles. So there's a couple specific websites I would point them to. I would tell them that they should either be on OkCupid or they should be on a web app called Feeld, F-E-E-L-D. Those are two apps that tend to specialize in threesomes and polyamorous couples. I also, when a client approaches me with that, the first thing I do is I ask them if their spouse is aware. Because if this is something they're surprising their spouse with, I tell them that I can't write it. But if they tell me that their spouse is open to it, I'll a lot of times ask to talk to the spouse, not for verification, but if you've got a threesome and you're looking for a third, I need to hear from two of those people about the thing they want in that third person.
Definitely. Definitely.
But it's not entirely different from writing a normal dating profile, but it's just about incorporating the wants and needs of both people in the couple. I won't write profiles for things like adultery, but if you have a couple that is open and consenting and looking to have an open relationship or looking for a threesome, you're welcome to do that, and I'm happy to help you write a profile. But I won't write profiles for things like Ashley Madison and things like that.
Yeah. Suppose you do a profile for somebody, and then after it's all done, they said they liked it, then they come back and they change their mind and they're upset, and they paid you and everything, and they want you to do another one. Now this went out already on a dating site. What could be done then?
So I talked to him, but I try to set pretty specific rules for satisfaction and guarantees on my website, because I've been doing this for almost 2 decades, and so, there are things that I can do, and there are things I can't make you act in a proper way. I can't make you take my advice. The only thing that I can guarantee to a client is that when I send them back their profile, they can look it over and they can tell me if they like it and if they feel like it represents themselves. Mm-hmm. And if they don't, I am happy to work on as many revisions as we need to until they're happy with it. But once a client signs off on the profile, you know, I'm happy to talk to them if they're upset, to see what's going on, to see if I can troubleshoot the problem they're having. And a lot of times, you know, it wasn't actually just a couple weeks ago, I had a guy who was very upset. He, you know, we did his profile and he came back and said, you know, nobody's responding to my messages. I'm sending 30 messages a day and no one's responding. And the first thing I said to him, I said, why the heck are you sending 30 messages a day? That's a silly thing to do. I told you that you should only be messaging people who, one, you find attractive, two, you find interesting enough that there's something in their profile you'd want to have a conversation with them about it, and three, there's some sense in reading their profile they might be looking for someone like you. And there's no way statistically that you're finding 30 women a day who fit that description. You're really just messaging people who you think are hot. So, but I said, so first of all, I think that's part of your problem. But second of all, can you read to me some of those messages you're sending? And let me hear what you're writing to these women. And let's see if maybe that's part of the problem you're having as well. And yeah, he was, I think you're beautiful. Hey, how you doing? Love your profile. Sounds like a lot in common. All of the most generic profile dating messages that women will never respond to. And he was messaging women who were clearly not looking for people like him. And it doesn't mean that he was an ugly guy or that he was a bad guy.
I don't believe all of that. I don't think it's too much, you know, because they all say the same thing. You know, like you're pretty and that's it, or hi. It's boring to them, maybe.
They don't.
Right?
They don't say that after they talk to me because I teach them to do better. Both my male and female clients, because it's the responsibility of both male and female daters to reach out. You know, and it's amazing that there's still statistically only about 30% of female daters are comfortable reaching out. A lot of times because they either think it's the guy's job or because they think men will be turned off by women who message them first. But first of all, it's nobody's job for you to find happiness other than yours. You can't leave that responsibility with someone else. But second of all, find me a man who doesn't like being approached by an attractive, interesting woman. And I will show you a man who probably has bigger issues than the fact that you've just messaged him.
Right. Also, have you ever encountered talking to someone who wants to do a profile, online dating, that's kind of, you're leery about him? Sounds like he's kind of psychotic in a way, because women are scared. You hear all of these stories out there about there have been murders from the dating sites and men that have beat up women and all that. How do you feel about that?
There have been a couple of clients who I've fired mid-consultation, and refunded their money back because, you know, I didn't like the vibe I was getting off of them. You know, there was one in particular who, just very sketchy vibes as to what he was looking for. You know, and a lot of times what I'll try to do, because here's the thing, everybody deserves love in their life. But there's a lot of people who have had bad experiences and then have gotten really bad advice about it. The amount of guys who come to me talk and use terms like alpha male, or, you know, don't want people to think they're a beta or a simp, or, you know, various other terms, and saying, you know, I'm tired of being a nice guy because women don't want nice guys. And I'm like, it's not that women don't want nice guys. It's that most of the people who call themselves nice guys are just being nice because they think they're going to get something out of it.
Exactly.
and that's when instances like that, I've had guys break down in tears.
Really?
Yeah. in consultations like this where it's not that they're psychotic.
Mm-hmm.
They are getting such bad advice from these awful pickup artist type characters online, in how to represent themselves and how to act. I've had to teach people that negging is a bad thing. Negging is one of the worst. You know what negging is?
Mm-hmm.
Negging is when you give someone a compliment, but you build it into an insult to try to throw them off balance and make them seek your approval.
Okay.
It's awful. It's the kind of behavior that works solely on women who have zero self-esteem. It's purely predatory.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. So I have to teach these guys that this behavior, it's not, not only not acceptable, and just it's bad humaning, but it's not how you get what you want. Because at the end of the day, these guys are looking for someone who will love them and who they will love back equally. But some of them...
Without any price tag.
What?
Without any price tag.
Yeah.
Right? Money gets involved, they're asking for money and all that.
But when they are in that place where they've become so toxic, I will oftentimes, where I don't think them dating is healthy for them or for anyone they might encounter, I shift the conversation and I say, look, I don't think you're in a good place to date right now. And so let's talk about what's going on. And a lot of times I'll try to convince them to seek some professional help. I'll offer them a refund at that point if they feel like they want to, or if they want to just take a couple of months and sort of get their head on straight and re-examine their life. We can wait. But I do whatever I can to keep that kind of toxicity from hitting the dating market, because there's plenty there. On both the male and female side, by the way.
Right, that's true.
You
hear plenty of stories.
Oh yeah, and so I see it and it feeds the toxicity from one side feeds the toxicity on the other, and on both sides they feel like they're justified in being the way they are because of the experiences they've had with toxic individuals from the other side. Mm-hmm. And so I try to intervene where I can, but it's on a one-on-one basis. And
right.
When it's situations where I can't get them to look at things from a better place, I've been known to refund clients in the middle of a consultation and say, look, I can't help you with this because I don't think it'll be a good experience for you to go out there and date right now. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're very understanding about that and even thankful. Right. And they have very colorful words for me.
Well, I've heard stories too, especially hear stories where male or female, if they've lost a loved one, that's the type of person to meet. And they're kind of leery, and a lot of them want someone to help them write the proper thing because they don't have enough security within the self, because they've been with their loved one for so many years, like 30, 40, 50 years, and they're out on the dating thing. They want to go out, but they're frightened.
I think the most extreme example I ever had of that was a man who was married for 43 years and who called me. His wife was buried on a Monday. He called me on a Wednesday.
All right.
And it was because he realized that for the first time in almost a half century, he didn't have anyone to have dinner with on Friday night. And we talked through it, and
it's being alone.
And that's the big part of that. And I said, look, I can help you write a profile, but I don't think you should use it yet. And because I think right now, any date that you go on is going to be you trying to fill a hole. And that's not only going to probably make you feel guilty, but it's not fair to anyone that you go out with, because they're not going out with you to fill that hole. They're going out with you because they're interested in you.
Mhm.
You're going out with them, not necessarily because you're genuinely interested in them, but because your wife passed last week and you're trying to fill a void.
Mhm.
So I said, so I can help you because it sounds like you're going to do this one way or another. And I don't want you to embarrass yourself, but I want you to consider these things.
It's
And
important. Yeah.
and so he ended up becoming actually sort of he put off dating, and we did a few recurring coaching sessions just to get him ready for the eventuality and sort of running through the concept of what it's like, because he was also, as we talked, he didn't just want to date. He was trying to find a clone of his wife.
Mhm.
You know, he wanted someone who was the same height, the same hair color, the same build.
I heard that before.
You know?
They're looking for the same type of woman.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I said, look, there is no same type of woman. You had a unique relationship with a unique individual, and everything beyond that is going to be a unique experience of its own. And, you know, so forget about the physical types. Forget about, you can't, you know, I tell this to a lot of my clients. When I was in high school, I took driver's ed. And the driver's ed teacher had one question that pretty much everyone in the class got wrong. And that's, when you're driving, where do you look? So where do you look when you're driving?
Direct, straight ahead.
No, not always. You look where you're going.
Oh, well.
That's
Well,
not always.
Straight ahead, you do look where you're going.
But what you don't do is you don't stare at the truck that you're trying to avoid.
Yeah, okay.
Because if you stare at that truck, you're going to drift right into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's this situation where these people coming out of long-term marriages, coming out of divorces, coming out of losing a spouse, and there was a huge increase in all of those during COVID. You know, there was a lot of COVID widows. There were a lot of COVID divorces. A lot of people who weren't used to having to spend all day, every day together, and then realized they didn't want to.
Which they never did before. They're ready to pull off the hair.
But, you know, it's, if you can't look at where you want to go, then you're gonna drive under a truck. And it's not gonna, because you're so focused on either trying to recreate something that physically can't be recreated, or trying to avoid something that was making you miserable for 20 years. But either way, you're staring at it and you're going to drift right into it, and not in a good way.
I know, it makes sense. It definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, like, do you think half of the people, because of loneliness, want to meet someone as they get up there in years, or just want a companion or someone to fill time, or they really want to fall in love?
I am always amazed when I have clients, because it was for many years that after like age 50, there was very little talk of remarriage from my clients. In the last couple of years, I've had clients in their 60s and 70s who are talking about marrying someone again. Some people are definitely trying to fill a void. Some people are lonely. Some people want somebody just because they don't have somebody. But what I'm finding primarily with my clients are that they have careers, they have dynamic lives, they have friends, they have family, but they are looking for that extra piece.
Right.
You know, they're looking, you know, they love to travel, but they don't like traveling alone, and they're sick of traveling with their girlfriend, you know, or, you know, towards the very, very beginning of when I was doing this work, a woman called me, and she was in her mid 70s at the time, and she didn't know that I knew her. She didn't recognize me by name, but she was a friend of my family.
Oh.
So, and so she's on the phone with me for about 20 minutes, and she says, "So how much does your service cost?" And I'm like, "Ruthie, you don't have to pay me. You've changed my diapers." And so Ruthie got a freebie. But, I heard that within about 6 months, Ruthie had 4 boyfriends. She had one boyfriend that was for travel, one that was for conversation, one that was for going out. Oh yeah, and one that was just for private Ruthie time. And more power to her. She couldn't find what she wanted in one guy, and she was able to compartmentalize that into her own little harem, I guess. But she was.
Okay, I'm going to ask you something else too. Suppose.
Sure.
I was hiring you and saying, how would I do this? That's the problem with me. Like geographics, how would I put that in the profile? Because I don't like to drive a distance. Traffic is murder here in LA. Would that hurt?
Okay.
Trying to find a relationship, and how would that be worded?
It's not.
And excuse me, and the guy would say, well, I come to you, and then the guy wouldn't want to come to the person all the time. He would want the woman to come to him, but she wouldn't want to drive that long distance. So,
especially in, someone over 50 looking for a serious relationship, Match is going to be your best bet. Don't go to the 50+ sites like Silver Singles or Our Time. They're just not as good. Go to Match. It's got the largest population. It's got the best search tool. But you don't have to mention any of that in your profile. You set preferences. When you're setting up your account, you're going to slide a little bar that says how far you're willing to look. And when you search, you're going to set your search up. And, every city is different as far as traffic. LA traffic's different than Florida traffic's different than New York, Boston, or Texas. So
where you are, right?
It depends on the part of town. Yeah. But, I live 10 minutes from Disney World, so traffic can be pretty busy here. But sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes those 5 to 10 miles can be an hour and a half, if you're not careful. But what I tell my clients is set your search parameters for how far you're willing to travel twice a week. There's no reason to mention it in your profile. And if somebody reaches out to you and they are from outside of your search preference range, and it's listed on the preferences of your profile, how close you're looking for someone. If they're, if you're in LA and he's in San Jose.
Okay.
You very simply, you can do one of two things. Either just block him because clearly he has trouble reading and so he doesn't really deserve your time. Or if you want to be a little nicer than that, say, thank you for reaching out, but I need to find people who are local to me. And unfortunately, you're not local. And then you're done.
Okay. Another thing I'd like to ask you, why do people, even if they hire a ghostwriter, they're in one city and they're looking for somebody in another state, which you find a lot of. What is that about?
So, okay. There's a few different things going on there. One, there are some clients who live in multiple locations, or they travel a lot for work, or they travel a lot because they have family in certain areas. And if they found someone in that area, they'd consider relocating. But more importantly, a lot of people who say they're in other states are scammers.
Yeah, and out of the country too.
Yeah. So, which is one. It's one. Well, yeah. Never forget if someone on a dating app is trying to get you onto WhatsApp, just block them and report them. Mm-hmm. But if you're on it, if someone is trying to reach out to you and it's not someone that you could reasonably meet within a week,
right?
That's a huge red flag. This is the dating site. This is online dating. It's not pen pals.
Yeah, that's the truth. Sometimes they keep making excuses and not to meet.
Then
that's that red flag.
Yeah, if someone is making excuses not to meet, they're either a scammer or they're someone who likes you but has grossly misrepresented themselves and realizes they're going to have to pay the piper when they actually meet you and realize that they were using somebody else's photos, or they're someone who's married. The point is this: online daters should be willing to meet. You should only focus on people who are local to you and who you can within a week. If that becomes an issue, and look, yes, I get it. Sometimes people travel for work, or they're on a vacation, or they're busy with a job for a week, or there's something, or they got COVID, so they have to quarantine for a couple of weeks. There's different things that happen. But if that excuse keeps coming up, move on. They're not real. They are probably in an apartment someplace in Prague or Mumbai or in Nigeria. And I've yeah, and I've seen people. I've had people talk to me. I had a client talk to me a couple weeks ago that she lost over $25,000 and her car.
Oh my goodness!
There was another woman who I ended up talking to the media a lot about a couple of years ago, who lost $275,000.
Oh my God!
She was a woman in Florida who was talking to a man who she thought was in California. And
she never met him. She never got to meet him.
Nope, she never got to meet him. And here's the thing: the people who get taken are not stupid. They're vulnerable. Mm-hmm. The sad thing about these crimes is they go unreported 80% of the time, according to the FBI, which only emboldens the criminals. If they know right off the bat that 8 out of 10 times what they've done to you is not even going to get reported to the police, there's very little deterrent for them here. And the chances of them getting caught are even more slim after that, especially with so few people reporting it. It's because it doesn't allow the police agencies to develop the patterns and recognize the scammers who are in these little networks. And they're oftentimes well-rehearsed networks of criminals who are working together.
I love that word. It's well-rehearsed. Yes, they are well-rehearsed.
And that's the thing. So you have people say, well, I would never get taken. I would never do something so stupid. None of the people I've talked to who've been taken are stupid. And not even so, and a lot of the scams, the big money scams, are aimed at women, primarily women who are over 60, especially widows. But there are scams that get aimed at people of all ages. There's a scam that most women would never get taken by, but is a pretty common one for men right now, where women are talking to men on dating sites and suggest meeting on a video chat before they meet in real life. And then they go on to a video chat, usually on Instagram or on Facebook. And the woman takes off her shirt as she's flirting with the guy and says, hey, I showed you mine, you show me yours. And a lot of guys, as smart as they might be, get a lot less smart when certain pieces of clothing come off. And so they follow suit. And thing they knew, they've been recorded, and they're being told how much money they need to turn over to not have the video. And and you can say, well, how stupid would you need to be for that to happen? I know one person who was taken by it for several $1,000s who was a neurosurgeon. So, not an issue of stupid. It's an issue of these people are very, very good at what they do. And so you have to listen to your gut. There's never a reason to send someone money. It's fine to video chat somebody, but the second they take off their clothing, you are being scammed. I don't care how good it feels, how nice it feels to feel wanted. You're being scammed. I don't care how much you trust a person because you've been talking to them for months. There's no reason to send them money, even if the money that you're sending them is to help you out. Because, so the woman who got taken for $275,000, she was talking to a guy who she thought was in California, and she thought was a commercial developer. And so he knew that she was worried about her daughter's financial situation. And so he said, my partner and I have been talking about how much I care about you. And, and so we thought, if we just bring you in on this new development, just 2% of it, that would not only take care of your daughter and your granddaughter, but you'd be taken care of for the rest of your life. So if you'd let me do this for you, then I would be so happy that I was able to make your life better like that. And she Western Union $275,000 to that guy.
You get in one lump sum?
One lump sum to Western Union. Some guy who got hired off Craigslist went in, picked it up from a Western Union office, and disappeared.
That's some story.
The photo turned out to not be a real person. Well, it was a real person. It was a U.S. ambassador.
Oh my God.
But who knows what the U.S. ambassadors to countries in Eastern Europe look like? So
have the fake people, the fake photos, fake IDs, fake passports.
Yeah, but the FBI. Yeah, I had a client. The client who got taken for like $25,000. She told me that why wouldn't she trust the guy? He sent her a picture of his passport. And I said, well, did you ever get on a video chat with him? No. Like, so how do you know that his face matched the picture on the passport? And even then, it's easy to fake that picture. You can take a picture of yourself and Photoshop it onto a passport.
Yeah, I see a lot of that on the movies they have, where they do that. They put different pictures on the passport, and they do that. You are fabulous to talk to.
Well, thank you.
How intriguing, because this is our world today, okay? It could go on and on and on and on and on. And you do help a lot of people who are indecisive and they're perplexed about themselves and everything. But I'm glad you said yes to me, Eric, okay?
My pleasure.
It was my pleasure having you on Channel 36, WeHo in West Hollywood, California. Profile Helper. Thank you again, and
Absolutely.
Have a wonderful day.
I'm glad we had a chance to talk.
Okay, thank you so much.
Music licensing reimagined. Music licensing reimagined.